In this past year, the Jewish family lost many precious souls. Some of them household names, many less well known, yet each of them made special contributions of their own and touched the lives of many of us. And so as we close the year together, we pay tribute in a moment of sacred memory. Rabbi Henry Sobel, Brazil's iconic rabbi and human rights activist, who challenged the dictatorship's announcement of the suicide of journalist Vladimir Herzog, who was actually murdered by his military captors. Rabbi Reuven Hammer, one of the pioneers of conservative Judaism in Israel, who helped establish Israel's Masorti movement, and who serves as the head of the Masorti Bet Din and as president of the International Rabbinical Assembly. Rabbi Richard Nelson Levy, director of spiritual growth at HUCJIR's Los Angeles campus and a past president of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, where he helped create the Statement of Principles for Reform Judaism and contributed much of the translation in the Reform prayer books, Gates of Prayer and Mishkan Tfilah. Rabbi Nissim Karelitz, an Orthodox rabbi and halachic scholar who served as chairman of the Rabbinical Court of Bnei Brak that heard cases dealing with financial disputes, marriage conflicts, and conversions. Rabbi Mike Stern, who founded Rabbis Without Walls to share his passion for Torah wisdom with others. Rabbi Yechiel Eckstein, founder of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, who raised hundreds of millions of dollars, mostly from evangelicals, to support needy Jews in Israel and throughout Eastern Europe, as well as the elderly, Holocaust survivors, Ethiopian Israelis, and Druze. Max Ettingen, who survived the Holocaust when he, his brother, and his parents were hidden by a courageous Christian family in a hole dug by the side of the house that was 8 feet by 3 feet, with air and water once a day reaching them through a pipe, living in the hole for 10 months, unable to stand, and surviving to come to America, where Max created a thriving family business, Orsid Realty, and a wonderfully loving family with his wife Rochelle, of 3 daughters, 6 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. Branko Lustig, who nearly 50 years after liberation from Bergen-Belsen, received an Academy Award as one of the 3 producers of Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List, and went on to win a second Oscar for Gladiator, and produced other films such as Black Hawk Down and American Gangster. Eva Moses Kur, who along with her twin sister was one of the 1,500 sets of twins experimented on by Joseph Mengele, who survived to one day found the Candles Museum and Education Center in Krakow, Poland, an acronym standing for the Children of Auschwitz Nazi Deadly Lab Experiments, and who made headlines when she embraced a 94-year-old Auschwitz guard during his trial in Germany. Marco Feingold, who at 106 was Austria's oldest Holocaust survivor, having lived through Auschwitz and 3 other Nazi camps in Germany, who founded a network that helped 100,000 Jews emigrate to Britain-administered Palestine, and who later served as the president of the Jewish community in Salzburg. Simcha Rotem, an Israeli Holocaust survivor who was among the last Jewish fighters from the 1943 Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, smuggling the last survivors of that uprising out of the burning ghetto through sewage tunnels, and who immigrated to pre-state Palestine and fought in Israel's War of Independence. Georges Longier, a French resistance fighter whose Aryan look of blonde hair and blue eyes enabled him to save hundreds of Jewish children from the Nazis by smuggling them across the Franco-Swiss border, for which he was awarded France's Resistance Medal, the Military Cross, and the Legion of Honor. Simon Rosenfeld, the last survivor of the Sobibor death camp, who participated in the camp uprising that resulted in his escape and who would ultimately make Aliyah. Shoshana Rabinovitchy, who survived the Vilna Ghetto and concentration camps as a young girl, a story she tells in her memoir, Thanks to My Mother, and who after liberation immigrated to Israel to serve in the IDF. Rosalee Glass, who escaped Nazi Poland only to be taken prisoner by the Russian army, which imprisoned her and her husband in Siberia and then in Kazakhstan, who survived the brutal cold of both to immigrate to America, where she created a successful drapery manufacturing business, an invited guest at this year's White House Hanukkah party, where she was publicly recognized by President Trump. She passed away a few days later from having been dropped as she was carried onto a plane in Los Angeles, which was taking her to Washington. Rosalee Glass was 103 years old. Rafael Eitan, who was born in British Mandate Palestine, fought with the Haganah as a teenager and was wounded twice in the 1948 War of Independence, who later commanded the team that captured Adolf Eichmann in Argentina, who was Israel's contact with Jonathan Pollard, and who played a leading role in Israel's strike against Iraq's nuclear reactor, and was a member of the commandos responsible for the assassinations of the Palestinians in Black September, who carried out the massacre of Israeli athletes at the Munich Olympics in 1972. Yaakov Malkin, intellectual, educator, writer, literary critic, and professor emeritus in the Faculty of Arts at Tel Aviv University. Emanuel Hatzoff, Israeli sculptor, whose sculptures can be seen at Tel Aviv University and at the Tel Aviv Museum of Art. Zvika Levy, a lone soldier and longtime IDF veteran who founded the Lone Soldiers Organization, for which he received the Israel Prize for Life Achievement for his advocating for the families of Israeli soldiers killed in the line of duty. Geula Cohen, born in pre-state Palestine, who was an active member of the Irgun and Stern Gang as the underground radio announcer, who became a leading Israeli politician and activist of the Likud party before founding the Tehiyah party, and who, despite her controversial history, was awarded the Israel Prize in 2003. Moshe Ahrens, Israeli politician and statesman, and one of the longest surviving members of Israel's founding generation, who served 3 times as Israel's defense minister, and as foreign minister, and as Israel's ambassador to the United States, and who is credited with shepherding dramatic advances in Israel's aeronautics industry and military capabilities. Mark Talisman, a founder of the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, who served for 18 years as director of the Washington Action Office for the Council of Jewish Federations of North America, and who organized the foundation to identify and preserve relics of hundreds of years of Jewish history in pre-Holocaust Europe. Marcel Haron, a pillar of the Egyptian Jewish community and the mother of the president of the Egyptian Jewish community. Erika Tishman, an architect for more than 30 years, tragically killed when struck by falling building debris on the streets of New York, who was the first woman to chair the board of directors of the social services agency, the Educational Alliance, and who, as a committed philanthropist, served on the board of trustees of Riverdale Country Day School and of Central Synagogue in Manhattan. Barbara Sipperstein, the first transgender member of the executive of the Democratic National Committee and a crusader for transgender rights, who died 2 days after a law bearing her name went into effect in New Jersey, giving residents the right to amend the gender on their birth certificates without proof of surgery. Martin Feldstein, an American economist at Harvard University, who served as chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors and chief economic advisor to President Ronald Reagan, where he was considered one of the 10 most influential economists in the world. Bernard Fisher, a surgeon and a pioneer in the biology and treatment of breast cancer, who was awarded the Albert Lasker Award for Clinical Medical Research for his pioneering studies that have dramatically improved the survival of women with breast cancer. Marian Sulzberger Heiskell, an American newspaper executive, philanthropist, conservationist, and former owner of the New York Times, serving as the Times director for 34 years, who was also the founder of the Council on the Environment of New York City and was chairwoman of New 42nd Street, an organization dedicated to revitalizing New York's Times Square theater district. Ira Neimark, American author, lecturer, retail executive, who served as chairman and CEO of Bergdorf Goodman, who also served as director of Hermes of Paris and as director of the Fashion Institute of Technology Foundation. Louis Rosenblum, a pioneer in the Soviet Jewry movement, who founded the Cleveland Council on Soviet Anti-Semitism and was a research scientist for NASA. Morton Barr, who led the Communication Workers of America for 20 years and later became vice president of the AFL-CIO. Alan Gerson, an American lawyer who, as member of the U.S. DOJ, helped bring Nazi war criminals to justice, and who sued Libya's government for its role in the 1988 bombing of a Pan-American plane over Lockerbie, Scotland. Meshulam Riklis, a financier who used debt to acquire companies and went on to donate some $190 million to Israeli charities and pro-Israel causes. Leah Mindy Ferencz, co-owner of the Jersey City Kosher Market, who was murdered along with a shopper at the market, Moshe Deutsch, by black Hebrew Israelites in a terrorist hate attack that also took the life of a police detective, Joseph Seals. Laurie Gilbert Kay, who was murdered at the Chabad Synagogue of Poway, California, where she was a founding member, sacrificing her life al Kiddush Hashem by jumping in front of Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein to protect him from the spray of bullets from a crazed anti-Semitic gunman. Al Vorspan, former senior vice president of the Union of Reform Judaism and former director of its Commission on Social Action, recognized as the foremost voice of social justice on the American Jewish scene. Felix Roaten, the great-grandson of the Grand Rabbi of Poland, who served as U.S. Ambassador to France and made his mark as an American investment banker, and as chairman of the Municipal Assistance Corporation of New York, playing a pivotal role in preventing the bankruptcy of the city, acting as chief negotiator with labor unions and creditors. Nathan Glazer, an urban sociologist and scholar of ethnicity, race, and education, and one of the last surviving members of the New York Intellectuals, a group of writers and critics who helped shape the thinking of the middle of the 20th century, writing The Lonely Crowd and the classic Beyond the Melting Pot, a study of ethnicity and assimilation, which he wrote with Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Robert Morganthau, who for more than 4 decades was the chief federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York and Manhattan's longest-serving district attorney, who came from a prominent Jewish family and who later in life helped to create the Museum of Jewish Heritage in New York City. Kenneth Bialkin, a longtime New York attorney who was a leading voice on the American and world Jewish scenes for more than 5 decades. A generous Jewish philanthropist, a passionate defender of Israel, and a longtime leader of many major Jewish organizations, including the ADL, the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, and the American Jewish Historical Society, as well as the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, and as founding chairman of the American Israel Friendship League, and as a member of the JBS Board of Advisors, appeared often on JBS. Leonard Goldberg, an American film and television producer who was responsible for such TV hits as Charlie's Angels, Starsky and Hutch, and Fantasy Island, and as he neared his 80s, created Blue Bloods, about a strong-willed police family, which airs to this day. And on JBS, Leonard Goldberg described how the show's weekly Sunday dinner was an ode to his own childhood Shabbat. Lucette Madelon Lagnaro, a Wall Street Journal cultural and investigative reporter, best known for her prize-winning memoir, The Man in the White Sharkskin Suit, describing Jewish life before and after World War II. Rick Ocasek, rock guitarist, producer, leader of the American band The Cars, an inductee of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who helped define the sounds of the late 1970s and 1980s with his mix of new wave, rock, and pop. Robert Frank, one of the most influential photographers of the 20th century, best known for his book, The Americans, photos taken on road trips across the United States. Mordechai Gerstein, acclaimed painter, sculptor, designer of animated films, and author of children's books, who received the National Jewish Book Award for The White Ram, A Story of Abraham and Isaac. David Berman, musician, singer, poet, and cartoonist, best known for his work with the indie rock band Silver Jews. Margaret Ann Peggy Lipton, actress, model, and singer, who spent 5 decades on stage, in film, and television, playing Norma Jennings in Twin Peaks, and winning a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress in a TV Drama for her portrayal of flower child Julie Barnes in The Mod Squad. David Breon Davis, cultural historian, intellectual, and a leading authority on slavery and abolition in the Western world, who served as professor of history at Yale University and was awarded a Pulitzer Prize and the National Humanities Medal for reshaping our understanding of history. Eric Pleskow, who escaped Nazi Vienna to become a prolific Hollywood producer, president of United Artists, and co-founder of Orion Pictures, in a career that earned him 7 Academy Awards for Best Picture, including Rocky, Annie Hall, Amadeus, and Silence of the Lambs. Ida Wyman, an American photographer who worked for Life magazine and is best known for her documentary photographs of New York City street life, which is now included in the permanent collection of the Jewish Museum in New York. Harold Bloom, often called the most notorious literary critic in America, who argued for the superiority of Shakespeare, Chaucer, and Kafka, and who authored a number of bestsellers, including The Book of J, suggesting that the Judeo-Christian God was a literary character invented by a woman. Robert Evans, producer of a string of such classic films as The Godfather, Chinatown, Rosemary's Baby, and Love Story. Sidney Sheinberg, an American lawyer and entertainment executive who served as president and CEO of MCA and Universal Studios for more than 40 years, and who is credited for discovering Steven Spielberg and for producing such film classics as Jaws, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and E.T. David V. Picker, an American motion picture executive and producer who served as president and CEO for United Artists, Paramount, Lorimar, and Columbia Pictures. Shelley Morrison, born Rachel Mitrani to Jewish parents from Spain, who played maids and housekeepers in 25 films and in 200 TV shows, and who's best known for her role as Rosario the maid on Will and Grace. Ron Liebman, the award-winning actor known for his acclaimed performances on television, including playing Rachel Green's father in the TV series Friends, in such movies as Norma Ray and The Hot Rock, and for his Tony Award-winning performance on Broadway as Roy Cohn in Angels in America. Allee Willis, a prolific pop music, movie, and television composer who co-wrote the theme song for the TV show Friends and the song September for Earth, Wind, and Fire, winning Grammy Awards for Beverly Hills Cop and for The Color Purple, and who was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Judith Krantz, one of the best-selling female authors of all time, selling more than 80 million copies of her 10 novels, beginning with her first, Scruples, which was published in more than 50 languages, and for her autobiography entitled Sex and Shopping, The Confessions of a Nice Jewish Girl. Jerry Herman, the legendary Broadway composer and lyricist, best known for the musical Hello, Dolly, as well as La Cage aux Folles, and the musical telling the story of the founding of the State of Israel, Milk and Honey, who was nominated for 5 Tony Awards, winning twice, and receiving the Tony Lifetime Achievement Award in 2009. Hal Prince, legendary director and producer, who won 21 Tony Awards for some of the greatest shows in Broadway history, including Damn Yankees, Cabaret, The Phantom of the Opera, West Side Story, and Fiddler on the Roof. And Herman Wouk, whose renowned literary career spanned 7 decades and who wrote 24 novels and works of nonfiction, including his Pulitzer Prize-winning The Caine Mutiny and Marjorie Morningstar, as well as his classic introduction to Judaism, This Is My God. Herman Wouk lived to the age of 103. Zecher Tzadikim Livracha, the memory of the righteous is forever a blessing.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. And we're especially pleased to remind you that thanks to a generous matching gift from the Cayley family, every new or increased dollar you donate to JBS will be worth double to JBS. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please, indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.